There is a strange nobility in being the prototype. To walk a path carved in darkness, unperfected, uncelebrated, so that others may run in light. The Orion Exoframe was never destined for fame, nor to endure in memory like MJOLNIR. But in its quiet, mechanical heart beat the genesis of the supersoldier. Hey everyone, welcome back to Installation 00, and today we wind the clock back, not to the Spartans of legend, but to the fractured, imperfect first steps of the UNSC's quest to augment the human form. This is a breakdown of the Orion Exoframe load carrier, the ancient ancestor of MJOLNIR. The actual lore available on this platform is relatively limited, so I've decided to break this video down into two major segments. The first being the lore, all canonical information that we have on the Orion Exoframe load carrier, and then the second part, the speculative, where we will investigate and speculate on the exact parameters and functions and form of the Orion Exoframe based on the fact that it was a predecessor to MJOLNIR and SPI, and at least in some capacity inspired both platforms in the future, but that of course some technical innovations didn't really come into effect until MJOLNIR. So we're softly winding the clock back on the technology of the Halo universe from the 26th century back to the 25th. So let's dive into the lore of the Orion Exoframe load carrier, forgotten by many, remembered by few, and dissected here in full. The story of the Orion armor begins, paradoxically, not with armor, but with fear. By the mid-25th century, humanity had fractured. Outer colonies simmered with rebellion, and the UNSC, spurred on by Oni's deep state paranoia, sought an answer. That answer was Project Merlino, a secretive initiative founded in 2491 by the Colonial Military Authority, the CMA, with Section 3's shadowy fingerprints all over it. The goal? Equip the earliest generation of augmented soldiers, the Orion operatives, with powered armor capable of making them walking tanks on the battlefield. This was not yet MJOLNIR, not yet genius, but it was Audacity, a prototype full-body powered exoskeleton, the Orion Exoframe load carrier. Quite unlike the later MJOLNIR, the Orion Exoframe was never fully deployed in a complete suit. Only components really saw active field use, some of them attached to partially armoured Orion operatives. Records show greaves and forearm segments were tested in Operation Kaleidoscope around 2506, while a full testbed was trialled on Mars by Candidate 029. It was a step into the dark, a trial by metal and will. The armoured's most iconic feature, a shoulder angel, micro-missile and decoy launcher, sat mounted to the upper back, foreshadowing later integrated battlefield countermeasures, and though it never reached production, it left fingerprints across history. Dr. Halsey accessed its classified files in 2515, drawing from them while designing what would become the Mark IV MJOLNIR, the armour that turned John 117 into a legend. It also inspired SPI armour via the Watershed Division, providing a foundational framework for lightweight, powered systems. In short, Orion was the proto-language from which all Spartan armour was eventually spoken. Now let's step beyond canon. Let's take everything we know and layer engineering logic on top. What was the suit? What could it really do? Given its time of development, Orion wouldn't have benefited from the advanced materials we see in MJOLNIR, such as polymerized lithium niobosine or nanocrystal ceramics. But it almost certainly still used cutting-edge alloys for its era. I propose a mix of titanium A plating, carbon fiber layering, and ballistic reinforced Kevlar underlays. Heavy but effective, The goal here wasn't elegance, it was function, durability, survivability. The armour was powered, but not by the compact fusion reactors of Mjolnir. Most likely it used a modular BA series battery pack, offering hours of powered assistance rather than days, or in Mjolnir's case, years. Movement would likely have been assisted by servo-assisted joints and early hydraulic or pneumatic actuators. A powered knee joint, elbow rotation motor and spinal exoframe were likely designed to amplify strength, not to superhuman levels, but enough to make a 250-pound frame feel nimble. This was not Mjolnir's speed and grace, this was load-bearing grunt power. Lift more, march longer, absorb impact. That was the brief. Though AI integration was likely non-existent, the Orion helmet likely featured targeting reticles, rangefinders, thermal vision, and rudimentary battlefield telemetry. The HUD may have been hard-linked to a tactical uplink rather than embedded software, akin to early marine visor prototypes. Tucked quietly into Orion's exoframe upper back was a prototype system that defied the armour's otherwise brute force mentality. A battlefield utility designed to deceive, distract, and destroy. They called it the Shoulder Angel, and while the name might evoke serenity, its purpose was purely tactical violence. The Shoulder Angel was a micro-missile and decoy launcher mounted above the shoulder blades and integrated into the exoframe's dorsal module. Its function was to act as an automated fire support, disruption, and electronic countermeasure deployment, freeing the user's hands and attention. Think of it as an early brute force cousin of later Mjolnir hardpoints or SPI modular panels, but without the polish and finesse. While not confirmed, it is possible that the Angel could also track laser designations or prioritize targets based on HUD telemetry from the helmet's sensor suite. Given the time frame, its interface was probably rudimentary, with targeting done manually or via proximity presets. The launcher housing was likely made from a lightweight titanium alloy with a reinforcement hinge mount tethered to the suit's dorsal spine. Payloads could have included Type 00 micro heat missiles, small armor-piercing shaped charges, decoy emitters releasing bursts of radar noise or infrared flares to break lock-on, signal jammers, short-duration static bursts to interrupt local comms or drone control. While not standardized across Orion units, the Shoulder Angel was a field experiment in modular warfare, proof of concept for autonomous battlefield assets attached to the warfighter. The system likely drew power from the exoframe's battery or operated semi-independently via internal capacitors. Despite its early design, some features would have been timeless. Biofoam injection ports to treat battlefield trauma, for example, modular environmental seals for vacuum or toxic combat zones, and potentially early biometric telemetry arrays, feeding data on pulse, hydration, or nervous activity back to a remote command station. While not self-sustaining like Mjolnir, it was a sealed suit more akin to a walking tank than a uniform. For all its promise, Orion was bulky, power-hungry, and low endurance. Without shielding, it relied entirely on its armour shell to absorb damage, and when power ran dry, it became a coffin of metal, not a miracle. It lacked the neuromuscular weave of Mjolnir and the AI interface latency buffering that made Spartans so fluid. But it worked. It lifted, it protected, it fought. And for a generation of test soldiers, it was the only thing between them and oblivion. To be first is to be forgotten, but to be remembered is often to be last. The Orion Exoframe was never mass-produced, never glorified, but it was essential. It was the steel skeleton of the dream, the first mechanized prayer in humanity's war against its own limitations. Without it, there is no Mjolnir, no Spartans, no hope. And now, finally, it receives the recognition it deserves. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, kindly tap that like button, and if you're not already subscribed and want to see more stuff like this, be sure to subscribe so you don't miss future uploads. pop a comment down below telling me what you thought of today's video, or if you want me to cover something specific in the near future. I want to take this opportunity to thank and give shoutouts to my patrons and YouTube supporters: Spartan10148, my singular contender class Ancilla, the triumvirate of mines within my installations Metarch, Falcon, Jordan and Poseidon, my 7 installation monitors Sylphia, Ashley, Esoteric, Spartan1029, Chris, Orion and Shane, the crush of sub-monitors Legion, Ryan, Lebrat, Spartan0137, Element 0, J3, Cult, Evermore's, Personal Devil, Scion Esports, Phantasma, Ashton and 191 Shaken Lightbulb, my fleet of Strato Sentinels, my most loyal of Enforcers, and every single one of the awesome people supporting the channel over on Patreon. My Tier 0 Transcendent YouTube members Spartan137, again, Maury, Jimbo and Balaz, and all other YouTube members keeping my installation functional on that glorious vacuum energy. I cannot thank you all enough. Shout out to John because... And if you like what I'm doing here, consider supporting the channel on one of the support links in the description to net yourself some tasty merch and help keep the channel going. Take it easy everyone, and find peace in the domain.